talking on Romans 2, verse 17 through 24, and Paul is addressing the Jewish mindset of that time. He's addressing the hook, I guess you could say, of which the Jewish people were getting caught on. And he explains the Jewish way of thought pretty accurately, which is understandable because he was a Jewish person. He was a Pharisee, and he understood how the Jewish people thought. And he says this. He says, "Indeed, you are called a Jew, and you make your rest in God, and you make your boast in God, and you know His will, and you approve of the things that are excellent, and being instructed out of the law." He says, "You yourself are confident that you are a guide to the blind, a light to those in darkness, instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, having the form of knowledge and truth in the law." The Jewish people thought themselves as good with God based on these facts. They said simply because we are God's people, we are okay with God. And Paul is saying that this is not necessarily true. Just because you are a Jewish person does not mean you are okay with God. And in verses 1 through 11, Paul is addressing the Greek moralist and the Jewish legalist. And then in verse 12, he switches over to the Jewish people, and he talks to them directly. And the point Paul was making in verse 13 of the same chapter is all of your boasting in God, and your resting in the law, and your knowing of His will, and you approving of the things that are excellent means nothing unless you are doers of the law, and only then are you just in the eyes of God. And he's trying to show them that your position that you have in your mind with God means nothing unless you have Jesus Christ in your heart. He gets to that into Romans chapter 3. So now he says, "You who teach another, do you not teach yourself?" And he says, "You who preach that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who preach that a man should not, or you who say do not commit adultery, do you commit adultery?" They thought themselves as okay to do whatever they wanted because they were, the children of God. They could do whatever they wanted to do. God would look at them and say, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal since you are my children. And then he says, "You who abhor idols, do you rob temples?" And I don't know if he means you who abhor idols, do you rob pagan temples? Or you who abhor idols, do you rob God in His temple? Either way, if you abhor idols and these pagan people worship idols, and you go into their temple and you steal their stuff, I don't know, steal their idols to destroy them, or steal, I don't know, whatever you steal, you're still a thief. And you're still sinning because you're stealing from other people's things. And no matter what your mindset is about these pagans and their idols, it doesn't really matter if you're stealing from them. You're still a thief. And if you abhor idols and then you rob God in His temple, like the people were doing whenever Jesus ran them out of the temple, then you're still a thief, and you're still robbing God, or you're still robbing people, and you're still a thief. And just because you are a child of God does not mean that it's okay for you to steal and rob temples of any kind. Doesn't matter if they're pagan or not. Then he says, "Those who make your boast in the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law?" He's making a point that yes, you do break the law, and because you break the law, you dishonor God because of that. And he says, the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it is written. And that's a reference to Ezekiel 36:22, where God had kicked Israel out of the land because they were shedding blood and sinning against God and doing things that were decidedly evil in God's eyes. And the people in the other lands where Israel had been dispersed to were saying these people are people of God and they have been kicked out. And God said that his name is profaned among the nations. And in context, it is because the Israel had done bad things. And then here in Romans chapter 2, he's talking about the same thing. In the same sense, Israel is sinning against God. They are doing evil in the sight of God. They are doing things that are wrong, but saying they are okay because they are the children of God. Now, we can get in a high and mighty kind of mindset and say that we don't do that nowadays. But sometimes, I have seen Christians do this. They have the same mindset. They have this idea that indeed we are called Christians and we rest in the law and we make our boast in God and we know His will and we approve of the things that are excellent and we are instructed out of the Bible and we are confident that we ourselves are a guide to the blind, a light to those in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, and we have the form of knowledge in truth in the Bible. And they think because they have these I don't know, these qualities about themselves or the qualities about the Christian faith that they are okay with God. And it's really the same mindset of back then. And we have to watch ourselves so that we don't get that mindset, because this is not what makes us okay with God. He goes into Romans chapter 3 when you read it. He tells us that we are made righteous through faith in Jesus Christ, not through being Christians, not through going to church, not through being a Jew, not through knowing the law.